There's a moment when everything changes, when someone walks into a room and speaks and everyone stops, not because they're loud, not because they're demanding attention, but because their voice carries something real, something that cuts through the noise and lands with weight. That moment doesn't happen by accident. It's built, it's trained, it's earned through discipline and practice, and it's available to anyone willing to do the work. Most people will never understand this. They think leadership is about titles, about position, about being in charge. But real leadership starts with something much simpler and much more powerful. It starts with how you speak. If people don't feel your words, they won't follow your voice. That one truth changes everything about communication. Most people talk to be heard. Leaders talk to be remembered. The difference isn't in volume, it's in precision, clarity, strength, and timing. If your voice isn't respected, your ideas won't matter. If your words don't hold weight, your presence won't lead anyone. Loud volume and excessive talking don't create leadership. True leadership communication lies in being natural, powerful, and influential. 1. Listen like a leader. Before you speak. Leadership isn't just about speaking well. It's about listening well, because listening makes the words that follow sharper and more precise. Listen completely, without interrupting. That's the first discipline. Most people listen to argue back, not to understand. They wait for their turn to speak. But real leaders listen to extract truth. They listen to understand what the real problem is. Repeat back the main points to confirm understanding, not to show how smart you are, but to ensure nothing gets misunderstood. What I'm hearing is, dash. That phrase builds bridges instead of creating distance. Listen to the emotions behind the words, not just the words themselves. People say one thing, but feel another. Leaders catch that difference. They hear the fear in the question. They hear the frustration in the report. They hear the hope in the proposal. Ask questions to dig deeper instead of rushing to argue. That's the difference between wanting to understand and wanting to win. Tell me more about that. What makes you think that way? What risks do you see? Those questions open truth that arguments can't touch. When you listen correctly, the words that follow don't need to be loud, don't need to be long, because they already have a clear target. They already know exactly what problem needs solving. That's why the best leaders say little, but create big impact. They listened first. 2. Master your voice before you master others. Your voice reflects who you really are. If your voice isn't steady, your leadership won't be certain. That's not a suggestion, that's a requirement. Your voice isn't just sound. It's your presence. It's your attitude. It's your energy. And if your voice isn't stable, leadership will never be trusted. Control tone, volume, rhythm, and emotion. That's the quartet that determines everything. Never let emotion override logic. When angry, your voice doesn't rise. When excited, your pace doesn't rush. When tense, your tone doesn't shake. Leaders don't just talk. They command attention, not by being loud, not by talking over others, but by using a steady, calm, grounded voice that tells people, I'm not here to impress you, I'm here to guide you. That's the difference. Loud people want to be noticed. Grounded leaders want to be understood. There's a massive difference between the two. When your voice is controlled, people feel safe around you. They feel like you won't snap, won't panic, won't spin off into emotion. You're steady, and that steadiness creates trust. Choose the right time to speak. Timing isn't just about when to talk, it's about when not to talk. Powerful voices know when to hold back. If you speak from impulse, you'll say things you regret. You'll create damage. That takes time to repair. But if you train yourself to pause, to think, to listen, you'll speak fewer words, but they'll carry more weight. And that's what leadership communication is about. Fewer words, more meaning. 3. Own your words and speak with full confidence. Leadership begins with owning every word with absolute confidence. Strong words don't mean harsh words. They mean words that hold meaning, carry weight, and show you've earned the right to be heard. Eliminate weak language immediately. Cut out, I think, maybe, I guess, I'm not sure, you know, kind of. It's like these phrases slip into conversation and send a clear message. I don't fully believe what I'm saying. Every time weak language appears, it weakens the message. It loses people, because the truth is, nobody follows someone who sounds uncertain. Nobody buys into a message that sounds shaky. Nobody gets inspired by someone who doesn't believe in their own voice. Speak from experience, not just opinion. Don't focus on speaking more. Focus on speaking better. Prepare thoroughly before speaking so your words have power. Words must be earned through life experience. Speak honestly, not rudely. When you speak, people need to feel that you're serious. They need to feel that you're grounded, that what you're saying isn't just talk, it's who you are, it's what you stand for. That means paying attention to the words used every day. Most people speak out of habit. They talk just to talk. But leaders speak with intention. They don't waste words, don't ramble, don't water things down. They speak straight. Speak real, and speak with the kind of presence that says, I've earned the right to be listened to. 4. Cut out weak language and speak with true power. The way you speak reveals how you think, and how you think shapes everything. Weak talk is more than soft words. It's the habit of speaking from hesitation, from fear, from insecurity. Replace I hope with I will. Replace I guess with I've decided. Replace it might be with here is what I see. Speak from inner conviction, not fear. Real strength in voice begins with eliminating words that waste power. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. Don't need to shrink opinions to avoid discomfort. Don't need to sound small to be liked. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be clear, to be strong, to be solid, and that starts by dropping every phrase that gives people permission to ignore you. Strength doesn't mean aggression. You don't need to be harsh to be powerful. Don't need to dominate the room. Real strength is calm. It's controlled. It's steady. It's speaking from a place of certainty because you know who you are and know what you're saying matters. When you speak with strength, people respect you differently. They don't interrupt as much, don't question you the same way. They listen longer because strong words hold attention, and attention is currency. It's not given, it's earned. 5. Be clear. Be brief. Value isn't measured by how much you say, but by how well you say it. You don't need long speeches to sound credible. Don't need to keep repeating yourself to be clear. Don't need unnecessary examples to make sure people understand. When you speak with clarity, one sentence is enough. When thoughts are organized, you don't ramble. When presence is strong, you don't rely on volume or length. You rely on precision. One clear sentence delivered without hesitation is more powerful than a 10-minute speech filled with filler. Say less, but say it better. Cutting out details that don't matter. Say what matters. Then stop. Let silence do the rest. People don't have unlimited attention. Most are distracted before you even open your mouth. When you speak, you're competing with their inner dialogue, their phone, their worries, and everything else pulling at their focus. If you drag your message out, if you keep circling the point, they start to check out. And when they check out, you lose influence. Not because your idea isn't good, but because it got lost in too many words. Getting to the point doesn't mean being cold, doesn't mean being harsh. It means caring enough about people's time to be efficient with words. It means taking time to think through what needs to be said and what doesn't. It means not speaking to fill space. You're speaking to create movement. 6. Adapt your words to your audience. Leaders know that not everyone understands language the same way, so they adjust to fit their audience. Speak with technical details to engineers. Speak with results to managers. Speak with emotion to teams. Avoid jargon that causes confusion when speaking to newcomers. Put yourself in the listener's position. If I were them, how would I understand this? Adjust your tone to create closeness, not distance. The same message needs different packaging for different people. What inspires one person might bore another. What convinces one might confuse another. Leaders read the room and adjust accordingly. That doesn't mean changing your core message. It means finding the right way to deliver it so it lands, so it sticks, so it moves people to action. 7. Speak the language of vision. Leaders inspire by showing others a clear picture of the future. Use future-oriented language. Here's where we're going. Speak with concrete images instead of vague concepts. Connect the big vision to small, current actions. Let listeners see themselves in that future picture. Don't just describe what will happen. Help them feel what it will be like when it does happen. Vision without direction fizzles out. After sharing vision, tell people exactly what to do next. Make it specific, make it immediate, make it clear. By Friday, I need each of you to... That clarity drives results. 8. Lead conversations, don't chase them. Leaders guide the flow of conversation instead of being swept along by it. Ask open questions to lead others' thinking. Keep conversations on important topics. Don't let them wander. Most conversations drift without purpose. People talk about whatever comes to mind. They chase tangents. They get distracted by side issues. They lose track of what they were trying to accomplish. That's not leadership. That's just talking. Leaders know where the conversation needs to go, and they guide it there. Not by force, but by skill. They use questions to steer thinking. They use statements to refocus attention. They use silence to create space for important points to land. When pulled in other directions, politely bring it back to the original goal. Know when to end instead of dragging it out uselessly. Control the direction without controlling people. Think about the last meeting you were in that actually accomplished something. Chances are someone was guiding that conversation, someone was keeping it on track, someone was making sure it stayed focused on what mattered. That's what conversation leadership looks like. But guiding conversations isn't about dominating them. It's not about talking the most or having all the answers. It's about knowing what needs to be discussed and making sure it gets discussed. Sometimes that means asking the hard question no one else wants to ask. Sometimes it means redirecting when people get off track. Sometimes it means summarizing and moving forward when discussion has reached a natural conclusion. The key is being intentional about it. Most people just let conversations happen to them. Leaders make conversations happen for them. Here's how you do it. Start with a clear purpose. Before any important conversation, know what you want to accomplish. Not just what you want to say, but what outcome you want to achieve. Then use questions to guide thinking toward that outcome. What do you think the real issue is here? If we could only fix one thing, what would it be? What would success look like? Notice how those questions don't tell people what to think. They guide people toward thinking about what matters. You also need to be comfortable with tension. Many conversations avoid the real issues because they're uncomfortable, but leaders walk toward discomfort, not away from it. They bring up the things others are thinking, but not saying. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. I think we're dancing around the real issue. What are we not discussing that we should be? That takes courage, but it's also what moves conversations from surface level to substance. Another key skill is knowing when to pause and when to push. If people need time to think, give them silence. If they're stuck, ask a question that helps them move forward. If they're avoiding something important, address it directly. The best conversation leaders are like skilled conductors. They know when each instrument should play and when it should be quiet. They create harmony without forcing it. And they always know when the conversation has accomplished its purpose and it's time to end. 9. Speak with integrity, so trust follows. Every word from a leader must carry credibility. If you say something but don't keep your word, power disappears. Say less, but always do what you said you'd do. This is where most would-be leaders fail. They make promises they can't keep. They commit to things they can't deliver. They say what people want to hear instead of what they can actually do. And every broken promise, every missed commitment, every contradiction between words and actions erodes trust, and once trust is gone, leadership becomes impossible. Don't promise to please people, only promise when you're certain you can deliver. When wrong, admit it immediately, instead of making excuses. Keep consistency between words, actions, and values. Trust isn't built in one speech. It's earned through repeated, reliable interactions. Every conversation either builds trust or breaks it. There's no neutral. People are always watching. They're asking themselves, can I count on this person? Do they mean what they say? Will they follow through? And they answer those questions not based on your words, but based on your track record. Based on what you've done in the past, based on whether your actions match your statements. People watch to see if your words match your actions. If they don't, they stop listening to what you say and start watching what you do. And if what you do doesn't match what you say, your leadership dies. That's why integrity isn't just about being honest. It's about being consistent. It's about alignment between your internal values, your external words, and your actual behavior. Most people compartmentalize. They act one way in meetings and another way in private. They say one thing to their team and something different to their boss. They present one version of themselves to customers and another to colleagues. But leaders understand that integrity means integration. All the pieces have to fit together. Your private thoughts, your public statements, and your actual behavior all have to align. This requires discipline. It requires saying no to things you can't deliver. It requires admitting when you don't know something. It requires being honest about limitations and challenges. But that honesty actually builds trust, not destroys it. People respect leaders who acknowledge reality even when it's not what they want to hear. The alternative is making promises you can't keep, which destroys credibility faster than almost anything else. Here's a simple test for integrity. Would you be comfortable if every private conversation you had was made public? Would you be proud if your team could see all your decisions and the reasoning behind them? If the answer is no, you have work to do. But if the answer is yes, you're building the kind of foundation that real leadership requires, the kind that allows people to trust not just your words, but your character. And when people trust your character, they'll follow you through uncertainty, through difficulty, through change, because they know that even if you don't have all the answers, you'll be honest about what you do and don't know, and you'll keep your commitments, even when it's hard. That's the kind of trust that makes leadership possible. 10. Practice. Daily. Lead naturally. Leadership doesn't appear from nowhere. It's built through repetition. You don't become powerful by accident. You become powerful on purpose. That's the discipline most people overlook. They want to sound strong when it matters, but they haven't practiced in the quiet. They want to lead with authority, but they haven't built the habit of speaking with intention. If you want your voice to guide others, to influence, to create impact, you have to train it like a skill. Not sometimes, not when it's convenient, every single day. Because leadership doesn't show up out of nowhere. It's built through repetition. Your voice is a tool. The more you sharpen it, the more precise it becomes. The more you use it with awareness, the more it adapts to your intention. But if you speak without discipline, your voice loses structure. It becomes reactive. It gets shaped by emotion instead of clarity. That's why the work happens in the daily conversations, the regular moments when no one's watching, when it's just you and your reflection, when you're explaining your thoughts, speaking up, correcting something, guiding someone, or simply holding your tone steady. That's the training. That's where the strength is built. Practice in daily conversations. Train both voice and thinking. Get comfortable with silence. Build consistency that doesn't depend on mood. If your voice only sounds firm when you're calm but falls apart when things get uncomfortable, then you haven't trained it enough. If your message is only clear when there's no pressure but turns into rambling when questioned, then it hasn't been tested enough. Leading with your voice means developing it to a point where it holds up in any room, under any pressure, around any person. That doesn't come from theory, that comes from showing up daily and doing the work to improve how you speak, how you deliver, and how you connect. Start by being intentional every time you talk. Be aware of how you sound. Are you speaking too fast? Using filler words? Is your tone matching your message? Are your sentences clean? It's not about being perfect. It's about becoming aware. Awareness leads to growth, and the more you notice, the more you improve. Speak like it matters even when it's casual. Speak like you're leading even when it's one person. Speak like someone who owns their voice, not someone hoping it lands well. You don't need a stage to train your voice. You need discipline. You need consistency. Practice during phone calls. Practice while giving feedback. Practice when making requests. Say what you mean. Speak with purpose. Cut the excess. Stay present in your tone. That's the grind most people avoid. They wait for the big moment, the big opportunity, thinking somehow they'll rise to the occasion. But if you haven't trained, pressure will expose you. It won't bring out your best. It will reveal your gaps. And you can't fix those gaps in the moment. You fix them ahead of time when nobody's watching, when you're building strength behind the scenes. Your voice is a reflection of your thinking. If your thinking is clear, your words will follow. That's why training your voice also means training your mind. Get used to thinking in simple, strong statements. Train thoughts to focus. Eliminate clutter. Discipline internal language. So your external communication becomes sharper. That way, when it's time to speak, you're not building clarity on the spot. It's already there. You're simply letting it out. You also have to get comfortable with silence. part of training your voice is learning when not to speak. The pauses matter. The stillness between words carries presence. Most people are afraid of silence. They rush to fill the gap. But if you've trained your voice, you understand that silence is part of your strength. It gives words time to breathe. It lets your message settle. It shows you're in control, not just of what you say, but of when you say it. You can train tone just like you train physical posture. Speak with a grounded tone, not too high, not too soft, just steady. You're not trying to sound like someone else. You're finding your real voice, the one that holds authority without needing to raise volume, the one that speaks directly without hesitation. You develop that through practice, through repetition, through saying things out loud until your voice learns what strength feels like. It's not just about what you say, it's how you say it. Your delivery matters. If your voice shakes, people notice. If your words drag, people disengage. If your tone sounds unsure, they question your message. But if your voice is trained, it becomes effortless. It becomes natural. People don't even notice you're leading. They just follow because you've built a rhythm, a tone, a presence that guides without demanding. Training your voice also builds confidence, not fake confidence, but earned confidence, the kind that comes from repetition. You know what you sound like. You know how to stay calm under pressure. You know how to make your point without getting lost. That self-trust shows up in your speech, and people feel it. They may not know exactly why they listen to you. They just know they do because your voice tells them they can. There will be days you don't feel strong, days when you're tired, days when you're unsure. That's when your training carries you. That's when the habits you built kick in. You don't have to fake strength. You've already practiced it. You've spoken with clarity when you didn't feel like it. You've held your tone when it would have been easier to fold. That's the power of training. It builds consistency, so your leadership doesn't depend on your mood, it depends on your preparation. You can't build a strong voice by avoiding hard conversations. You build it by walking into them, not with arrogance, with intention, with composure. You don't raise your voice to get attention. You raise your standard. And when you speak, that standard comes through. People hear the difference. They hear the work behind your tone. They hear the thought behind your message. They hear the truth behind your delivery. That's what makes your voice lead. When you train your voice every day, you stop trying to lead. You just lead. It becomes part of who you are. You don't think about tone. You live in it. Don't think about structure. It flows naturally. Don't second-guess your words. You speak from alignment. That's the goal. Not to impress, not to perform, but to be so practiced, so grounded, so consistent that leadership shows up without effort. And don't forget, your voice is part of your character. The way you speak reflects what you've built internally. If your words are honest, your tone will be steady. If your message is true, your delivery will be strong. If your purpose is real, your presence will follow. But all of it must be trained. No shortcuts, no pretending, just daily work, daily progress, daily clarity, one sentence at a time, one conversation at a time, one adjustment at a time. That's how your voice grows. That's how your presence deepens. That's how your leadership becomes undeniable, not because you said the most, but because you trained the most, because you respected your voice enough to build it every day. Until one day you speak and people follow, not because they were told to, because they wanted to, because your voice didn't push, it pulled, because it didn't perform, it guided, because it didn't shake, it led. And that's when your voice becomes more than words. It becomes influence, it becomes power, it becomes leadership, natural, strong, and unstoppable. Golden rules of leadership communication. Fewer words, more power. The fewer unnecessary words, the stronger the message becomes. Every sentence should serve a purpose. Every word should carry weight. When you eliminate the fluff, what remains has impact. This isn't about being brief for the sake of being brief. It's about respecting the power of language. It's about understanding that attention is the most valuable currency in communication, and you earn it by not wasting it. Speak truth, not opinion. Don't guess, don't speculate. Speak from real experience and real data. Opinion is cheap. Everyone has one, but truth is rare. Truth is powerful. Truth is what people follow. When you speak from opinion, you're asking people to believe you. When you speak from truth, you're showing them what is. There's a massive difference in impact. Your voice is a tool, not a crutch. Voice isn't for hiding anxiety, but for conveying certainty. It's not for covering up insecurity, but for projecting strength. It's not for filling awkward silences, but for delivering meaningful messages. Too many people use their voice to manage their own discomfort. Instead of serving their audience's needs, they talk to calm their nerves instead of speaking to create value. That's using your voice as a crutch. Leaders use their voice as a tool. Impact over impression. Don't try to impress. Speak so people remember and take action. Impressive words fade quickly. Impactful words change behavior. The goal isn't to make people think you're smart. The goal is to make people think differently. It isn't to win approval in the moment. It's to create movement that lasts. These aren't just communication tips. They're the foundation of how leaders think, speak, and influence. Master them, and your voice becomes a force that moves people, changes minds, and builds the future. But understanding these rules intellectually isn't enough. You have to live them. You have to practice them until they become automatic. You have to train your voice to embody these principles in every conversation, every meeting, every moment when you open your mouth to speak. Because here's the truth. People can tell when you're trying to apply techniques versus when you're speaking from a place of genuine strength. They can sense when you're performing versus when you're leading. They can feel the difference between someone who learned some rules and someone who internalized a way of being. That's why this isn't about memorizing scripts or copying someone else's style. It's about developing your own authentic leadership voice, a voice that reflects your values, your experience, your character, a voice that people trust because it comes from a real place. The rules give you the framework, but you have to fill in that framework with your own truth, your own strength, your own purpose. And when you do that consistently, when you speak with fewer words but more power, with truth instead of opinion, using your voice as a tool for impact rather than impression, something shifts. People start to listen differently. They lean in instead of tuning out. They remember what you said instead of forgetting it 5 minutes later. They act on your words instead of just nodding along. That's when you know your voice has become a leadership voice, not because someone gave you a title, but because your words create the kind of response that only leaders get. The response of people who trust what you're saying because of how you're saying it. The response of people who follow your direction because your voice gives them confidence in the destination. That's the power of speaking like a leader, and it's available to anyone willing to do the work to develop it. The world is full of voices. Most of them blend together into background noise. They rise and fall with emotion. They change with mood. They follow trends and chase approval. They make promises they can't keep and speak words they don't mean. But once in a while, someone speaks differently. Their voice doesn't chase attention. It commands it. It doesn't beg for respect. It earns it. It doesn't try to impress. It simply impacts. That voice didn't happen overnight. It was built through thousands of small decisions. The decision to pause instead of rush, to listen instead of react, to speak truth instead of comfort, to hold ground instead of fold under pressure. Every conversation was training. Every difficult moment was preparation. Every time they chose strength over safety, clarity over confusion, their voice grew stronger. Until one day, they didn't try to lead with their words. They just did. This is what's possible when you stop talking like everyone else and start speaking like a leader, when you understand that your voice isn't just about being heard, it's about being followed, it's about creating change, it's about moving people from where they are to where they need to be. The choice is yours. You can keep using words to fill space, to avoid discomfort, to blend in with the crowd, or you can build a voice that matters, a voice that cuts through the noise, a voice that people remember long after you've left the room. The principles are clear. The path is simple. The only question is whether you'll do the work. Whether you'll train your voice daily until it leads naturally, whether you'll drop the weak talk and speak with real strength, whether you'll own every word you say with full confidence. But understand this, the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more leaders. It needs voices that speak truth, create vision, and move people to action. It needs people who understand that leadership starts not with a title or position, but with how they choose to speak. Your voice is waiting. It's been waiting for you to take it seriously, to train it, to respect it, to use it not as a crutch but as a tool for influence and impact. Most people will read these words and nod along. They'll think, that makes sense, and then go back to speaking the same way they always have. They'll make excuses about why they can't change. They'll say they'll start tomorrow, next week, next month. But leaders don't wait for permission. They don't hope for the perfect moment. They start now, in their next conversation, in their next meeting, in their next moment of choice between weak words and strong ones. Because here's what most people don't understand. Every time you speak, you're either building your reputation as someone worth listening to, or you're reinforcing the idea that your words don't matter. Every conversation is a vote for the kind of communicator you want to be. The weak speakers think they can save their strong voice for special occasions. They think they can speak carelessly most of the time and then suddenly command attention when it matters. But that's not how it works. Your voice is a muscle. If you don't exercise it daily, it gets weak. If you don't train it consistently, it fails you when you need it most. If you don't respect it in small moments, it won't serve you in big ones. That's why this isn't about learning techniques for presentations or meetings. This is about transforming how you communicate in every interaction with your family, your friends, your colleagues, your team, in person, on the phone, in writing, in every medium where your voice can be heard. The world is changing faster than ever. Information comes at us constantly. Everyone has an opinion, a platform, a message. In this environment, the voices that cut through are the ones that have been trained, the ones that speak with purpose, the ones that have eliminated the noise and focused on what matters. Think about the leaders who have influenced your life. The teachers who changed how you think, the bosses who pushed you to grow, the friends who told you hard truths, the family members who believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. What did they all have in common? They spoke to you in a way that mattered. They didn't waste your time with meaningless chatter. They didn't hide behind comfortable lies. They said what needed to be said, when it needed to be said, in a way that you could hear it and act on it. That's the kind of voice you can build. That's the kind of influence you can have, but only if you're willing to do the work. And the work starts with a decision that your voice matters, that your words have power, that you have something worth saying and you're going to say it with strength. Stop waiting for someone else to give you permission to speak like a leader. Stop hoping that someday you'll naturally develop the kind of voice that commands respect. Stop making excuses about why you can't change how you communicate. Start today. Start now. In your next sentence, make it clear, make it strong, make it matter. Because if your words don't lead, nothing else will, and the world is waiting for leaders who understand that truth. Make your voice one that matters. Make it one that moves people. Make it one that leads. The time for talking like everyone else is over. The time for speaking like a leader is now. This is your moment. This is your choice. This is your chance to transform not just how you speak, but how people respond to you, follow you, and remember you. Don't waste it.